And call on Councillor Zebulin to open with karakia. Ngā mihi. Certainly.
Morena tātou. Me karakia. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I waho, tū taua mai I roto. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e.
Kia ora. Thank you for opening us appropriately. Moves us to apologies, and we do have some. We have Councillor Hapata, Councillor Finlay for early departure, and Councillor Rachel Bowen. Any others? I'll move them, seconded by Councillor Naylor, and invite a vote. What's wrong? Let's vote. This passed, 12 votes for. Thank you. That moves us to notifications of additional items. We have none. Declarations of interest, are there any? There have been none. Public comment, we have no indication of public comment, so that moves us to, can I just be sure?
So these guys are expected.
Yeah.
These guys we haven't received. We haven't got any at the moment.
Yes.
So we'll go straight to
Thank you.
item 85.
Members, just as a matter of occurrence, our submitters for the Bull Brown Park land lease, have not indicated they wouldn't be here. They've actually indicated they would be here. So we're going to defer that item just to give space if there's some late arrivals. It's not usual, but it's my intention that, and also for members, the petition for the public and those watching online, the petition for the on-leash dog area is going to be taken after morning break, just for the petition to come in to give certainty, because we had the hearing first and we weren't sure how long that may take. And so that's going to move us on to item 11, and I'm going to invite Glenn Bunny, who is the property manager, to come forward to present the 38 Featherston Street proposal to grant a lease to council land to the Manawatu Woodworkers Guild and Corporation. The floor is yours, Glenn.
Morena tātou, I'm just scrolling through, Mr. Chair, you've skipped ahead, so I'll have to
Sure.
find the place.
Page 65 of our agenda.
So this is a recommendation to renew the lease for the Manawatu Woodworkers Guild, 38 Featherston Street. They've been at that location since 2007, current lease due to expire 2027. It's been notified, no submissions received. They're an important part of our community fabric, and we're happy to recommend that the lease be extended as per the paper. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Open it up if there are questions. There have been none. Thank you, Glenn. I'm happy to move the recommendation before us that the committee grant a lease to the Manawatu Woodworkers Guild Incorporated for the land at 38 Featherston Street, Palmerston North, described as part Lot 13 DP 2938 and Lot 2 DP 605123 in accordance with Council's support and funding policy in Section 52 of the Reserves Act 1977, seconded by Councillor Naylor. and open it to any comments or debate. There being none, invite a vote. That's passed, 12 votes for. Moves us to item 12, which I'd again invite you, Glenn Bunny, Manager for Property, to come and present this item, which is 53 Tocha Road, proposal to grant a lease on council land to the Manawatu Racing Pigeon Club Incorporated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similarly, very happy to support another community club in the Manawatu, the Manawatu Racing Pigeon Club. They've had some changes to their structure of their organisation and now looking to renew the lease to reflect those changes and extend the term. As per the previous report, very happy to recommend that be supported. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Glenn. Are there any questions from members? There being none, thank you again. I'd move as the chair the recommendation before us to grant a lease to the Manawatu Racing Pigeon Club Incorporated for the land at 53 Tocha Road, Palmerston North, described as part Lot 2 DP 2003 in accordance with council support and funding policy. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Naylor. Open it for any comments or debate. And there being none, I'd now like to invite a vote. Okay, and that's passed, 12 votes for and 12 votes for. That moves us to item 13.
We're just waiting on the officers.
He's just walked in.
Oh, he just walked in?
Yep. Just in time, Peter. We're up to your item. So I'd like to invite you to the table to present this report, item 13. Peter Ridge, Senior Policy Analyst, and this is on the variable speed limits for schools, confirmation and scope for draft speed management plan. When you're ready.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for the yearly call-up. So the purpose of this memo is to bring back the work which we did via a workshop back in March around the development of the speed management plan. The key thing here is determining scope. The key element here in scope is variable speed limits around schools. We have an obligation to make those changes by 1 July next year. This is a requirement under the speed limits rule. What we wanted to determine though is the staged approach that we think will work best. So we're proposing a two-stage approach. The first stage being those variable speed limits for schools. But there are a couple of other items we wanted to add in there for stage one. Te Wanaka Road, State Highway 56 is a key intersection for the development of Keke Whenua, and it's quite time critical. So we're proposing to include that in stage one as well. We've also recently had some funding approved by NZTA for intersection speed zone at Longburn Rongatia Road and number 1 line, and as it's an accident black spot, we wanted to include that as well, take advantage of that funding. But everything else we propose to push into stage two. And the reason for that is we have very limited capacity at the moment to do further work, particularly if we're including all of this together in the stage one for 1 July next year for the variable speed limits for schools. So that's why we've put a number of things, including the city centre and a number of other roads that were included in our previous speed management plan, which was put on hold after the government changed, into stage two so that we can focus on meeting our requirements under the rule barring those two very urgent exceptions which we think are appropriate. Stage 2 isn't being deferred for long. It's starting sometime in 2026. We haven't quite got the timing settled for that. It'll depend largely on resourcing. So it'll be somewhat of a parallel process as stage 1 comes to conclusion. The first quarter of next year we'll be starting the work for stage 2. So it's not a long delay, but it means we can manage our resourcing more effectively. So the recommendation is that we confirm the scope as set out there in the recommendation on the screen. If that's approved today and Council confirms this recommendation, we will go away, develop the proposal and bring that to you in August for approval for consultation.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to open it up to questions. Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Peter. Just around scope, and especially around kind of the line between stage 1 and stage 2, what would be the implications of bringing city centre into stage 1?
James Gale, Senior Transport Planner. So in regards to the city centre speed limit, I guess the reason we put it to stage 2 was there's no like safety priority or growth dependent on it. It's something that I guess council can do at its own pace. That being said, noting that there's no direct safety impact or growth related, it might be more difficult for us to get that one across the line, just with the current rule setting of the government of the day with its setting a speed limit rule makes it a bit more prohibitive to lower speed limits. So it might be best done in stage 2 to give time for maybe a bit of an update of the rule and focus on the safety and the growth first.
Thank you. I mean, if the Minister of Transport wanted to set the speed limit in the city centre, wouldn't we be better to know that sooner rather than later?
Through the chair, so in regards to the speed limit, I'm just referring to the guidance laid out in the rule, and yeah, for the city centre, to lower it to 30 k's, it would be quite difficult under the current setting of the rule.
Thank you. Is there any risk that stage 2 gets delayed and doesn't take off in 2026? Given especially the comment that was just there around the rule.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the risk, I guess, is the same risk we always face. These rules are set by central government. We are somewhat buffeted by their decisions. We're starting this work, stage 2, in 2026, which happens to be an election year. The government could change, the rules could change, as we saw in 2023. But similar to the advice I gave in 2023, we should always proceed on the basis of what we know at the moment. At the moment, we know that there are rules in place for how we set speed limits. The only other risk that comes into play, I think, here is staff resourcing. If other work comes onto our work schedule, which pushes that back in terms of another higher priority, then yes, it could be delayed. But we have an enduring responsibility for setting speed limits. It's not a once and done situation. We will always be working on speed limits, whether it happens in 2026 at the start of the year or at the end of the year or in 2027. We're going to be moving in that space on a perpetual basis.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. A couple of questions. The first one is, what exactly are we consulting on, given that we have to make these changes? Is it not another bit of a kind of strange consultation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is somewhat strange because we're put in the position of making very specific changes to speed limits. However, there are some elements of discretion. So the speed limit applies to a total of 300 metres outside the school gate, but exactly where that starts and ends can be modified to fit the environment. So part of what we want to consult on is the exact location of the area that's covered by that variable speed limit. We also want to, the time that it applies, there is a window under the rule that the variable speed limit would apply, but for different schools, their opening and closing times will mean that it is different in different locations. So there isn't a lot of scope for changes as a result of consultation. Nevertheless, even though the rule doesn't have a specific requirement around consultation for schools, we're still bound by the Local Government Act, and before we make a decision, we should understand the community's views.
Okay, so will we be quite clear in the consultation material that we're being directed to make this change, and so that that's not up for discussion?
Absolutely. We're very explicit about the scope of the work that we're doing here, the things that are being required of us, and the things that we're asking for feedback on.
Okay,
So for instance, it must be a 30k speed limit for a new school. We have existing schools that are covered by a 40k speed limit. They could stay at 40, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good idea, but that may be an element that we get some feedback on, so we can ask those questions.
okay. Thank you for that. And I just note that the recommendation on the screen is different to what we have in the papers because you've elevated the Longburn-Rangitia Road intersection to be part of the recommendation. So that's presumably a change that's come in since the papers were published?
That's correct, yeah. We had a relatively late piece of advice from NZTA around the funding. That funding is available in the coming financial year. So if we can progress that through the consultation now, it means we can take advantage of that funding in the next financial year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, guys. Just on that funding, what we've been through this cycle with NZTA dripping out little bits of money to us before. Does this fit into the plan, the wider plan, the last recommendation?
Sorry, which plan?
Well, is there a plan to lower the speed limit at Longburn-Rangitia Road, number 1 line?
So that proposal was actually included in our last draft SMP. We went over consultation on it. It didn't progress because that plan got put on hold. There has been a long-term intention, I think, to address that accident black spot, and the IS said it's at the moment the best recommendation for how we might do that.
Okay, that's good. We're the only city centre that I'm aware of, just done a bit of a Google search, and we're the only city centre in the country that doesn't have a lower speed zone. Do you know that?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of extra work's really required for that? If we were to give you some direction to push the city centre up into this stage 1, what is the real extra work that is required from your team?
Through the chair, so in regards to the city centre, I think the additional bit of work that needs to be mindful of is the requirement to do a cost-benefit analysis, which I think that's probably the most challenging part for potentially lowering the speed limit for the city centre.
Why?
Just the way the rule is written, and the intention of the rule in terms of developing the cost-benefit analysis, it's very much limiting, I should say, when it comes to any speed being lowered, unless there's a clear link to safety or perhaps growth.
So safety would include pedestrians, cyclists, that sort of thing?
It can be looked at as part of it. It's yes, it can be looked at as part of it. Yeah.
Would growth be part of that as well? Like, new structures, new buildings, investment in this central city?
Potentially that could be looked at as part of that.
Bus terminals, those sorts of things?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor. Sorry.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
got it, yeah. Floor's yours.
Yeah, thank you. My question relates to the consultation that happened in 2023, as outlined on page 74. in 2.2. Now, the questions that we asked when we consulted then, in what way would it be different to the consultation that we undertake now?
Particularly in relation to the variable speed limits for schools, the proposals were quite different then.
Do you mind just bringing your,
No.
thank you.
The consultation we did in 2023 on school variable speed limits was quite different. The proposals were substantially different. At that point, we were proposing a mix of variable and permanent speed limits, and for the area around the school, not just the road in front. So the proposals that we would be coming up with now are aligned to what the rule says now, and that's a lot more narrowly defined than what it was in 2023.
So would you expect, based on that difference, there to be much difference in the submissions? There was 378 that were done then. Would we expect to be hearing much in the way of that was different from those submissions?
Potentially, yes. Because the proposals will look substantially different, we also have schools that are no longer open that were open in 2023. Linton Country School is one that we consulted on that's no longer open. We have a new school that's open, Manukura. So there are other changes that won't have been included in what we did in 2023.
Okay, and just, I think in answer to Councillor Johnston's question, if I heard you right, did you say that the rule doesn't require us to consult?
So, yeah, and this is a very interesting question. Under the speed limits rule, the council can make a change to a variable speed limit for a school without having to do consultation under the rule. But the rule does not exist in a vacuum. We still have to comply with the Local Government Act, and under the Local Government Act, before making a decision, the council must be assured that it has understood the community's views. So just because the rule doesn't say we have to consult, the LGA still requires us to consult.
And the requirements under the LGA, does consultation that we've done in 2023, does it have a time limit?
Not in of itself, but we would be considering a range of things, such as the time between consultation. We've encountered this on other projects where we've consulted on a proposal and then a substantial amount of time has elapsed and we consider whether that's still relevant. There have been other changes within the city in that time, so how does that affect whether those views are still relevant? What I would say is we would be looking to ensure that we understand the current views of the community. What we gathered from the community in 2023 isn't irrelevant, but it would be added to the mix of information that we consider rather than treat it as a standalone piece of information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Zebulon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I had some similar questions just about the extent to which we could rely on or draw from the feedback that we got from that last round of consultation. It was my understanding that lots of the feedback that we got through that process was not just about variable versus permanent, but there was other feedback provided as well, and that there was generally a skew towards being in favour of variable speed limits. So to what extent could we rely on or be informed by the information that we've already got?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is no black and white answer, I believe, to this. It's not that we can simply translate what we found out in 2023 and say, well, it's still relevant today. Elements of that information is relevant. So, as you pointed out, there was a general supportiveness of variable speed limits, but the proposals were different back then, so I don't think it's appropriate to simply say that still applies. What we need to do in this situation is understand the community's views about these proposals. The way those proposals interact with each other as well is a factor. So I think it's more nuanced than simply saying what they said back then still holds true today.
Thank you. I guess my question is, are we just chucking that all out, or are we seeking to take what we've learned and then build from it with a second round of consultations?
We never chuck anything out. We're hoarders when it comes to consultation. We're looking at all the stuff that we've received in the past. But we also look at it with a critical eye to understand what it was about. So we're looking at that, and we're looking at it with the new information to understand. Yeah.
Thank you. My second question was about the stage 2 list there. That's a lot of investigations. And my question is, to what extent have we already investigated some of these in the previous speed management work that we've done?
You're correct that we have done work in a number of those areas already. I guess we've framed it as investigate because we want to keep an open mind. It is 2 years since we did that work. In one respect, that's quite a short amount of time. But as I say, a week is a long time in politics, and there will be different views around the table. So we don't want to make assumptions about what those proposals might look like. We're keeping a very much an open mind about where that may go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Peter and James. Just a couple of questions. Just in terms of the safety risk around the CBD, do we actually have any crash data, injury data in respect of the CBD, perhaps over the last year or two? That might give us a bit of a steer in terms of whether or not that's a factor.
Through the chair, so the city centre indicative business case did do a bit of a study of crash data in the city centre, so we've got some information from that project that could be looked at as part of the city centre investigation.
Yeah, thank you, and that brings me really to my next question, is that, you know, if we were to actually bring a reduced speed limit into stage 1 for the city centre, would that be beneficial in terms of the central city indicative business case, in terms of transitioning through that process?
Through the chair, a slower speed environment within the city centre would would allow for better pedestrian safety because you're reducing the potential conflict between pedestrians and cars. So yes.
And by moving a little bit more quickly on that, it would actually perhaps influence the through traffic, non-stopping traffic going through the CBD?
Through the chair, so the speed limit would likely probably impact on the traffic flows. If it is a naturally slower environment, it might defer people. I guess in terms of bringing it forward, it's just the risks at this stage that it might be more difficult to get across the line than if we waited to stage 2, I guess.
Okay, thank you. And just the next question is just around the lowering this, or the school speed zones. And I may have missed it in the rule, but are the times regulated for that? I know that was on recent media that some of the schools that have actually already done this, the times perhaps don't necessarily marry up with the times that children will be coming and going from school.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the rule does have, I believe it describes a window before the start of school and for a certain amount of time after the first bell has rung, and similar for the end of the day. What we found when we were looking at this in 2023 is that schools around our city have vastly different starting and ending times. So what we need to do is understand for each school location, and particularly where there are multiple schools within a very close proximity to each other, how those times will interact with each other. Because what we're trying to achieve with this is a safe environment, one that has speed restrictions changing up and down within a short space of time is not a good outcome. So we're looking for the most consistent approach we can achieve across the city.
Thanks, Peter. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you both. There's no further questions on, oh, sorry, we got one last come on. Councillor Johnson, back to you.
Apologies, Mr. Chair. It's just an extra question that occurred to me while I was thinking about the paper. If we were to put the city centre speed limits forward to be done sooner, and for whatever reason it didn't meet the criteria under the new rule, would that preclude us from doing it again for a period of time? Is there kind of like a lockout period afterwards if it didn't meet the criteria?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe the rule precludes that. I guess though the question is if a cost-benefit disclosure statement finds that it doesn't meet the required threshold, will it be different in 6 months' time? Possibly not, at which point nothing has changed. I guess I would just reiterate that we're not recommending that the city centre speed limit changes go into stage 2 because we don't think they are worthy. We do think they're worthy, that's why they're included in stage 2. It's primarily a capacity question for us in terms of trying to get it through. So if we do it 6 months later, when we start in 2026, the information we use will still be much the same.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Thanks, Mr Chair.
Thank you. And finally, councillor Meehan.
Thank you. Have we done any speed testing around the central city as to the mean of what cars are actually travelling at?
I don't recall what the current data is. James may have some.
Through the chair, so the city centre business case did also look at that. So it does differ in different parts of the city centre. So around the square, for instance, it is naturally a slower environment. Along parts of Church Street, people do speed up once they're kind of heading out. So it does vary. Some of the speed limits are around 30k. Some are a bit closer to what the current speed limit is. So without looking at the data directly, I can't tell you specifically where it is, but generally.
No, okay. My thought was when you look at the traffic flow in the city now and the amount of traffic and the way the city's set, we don't really get much over 30k's, do we?
Through the chair, some areas no. Other areas where it's a bit less congested, people can still actually hit the 50. So it's it just depends on whereabouts you're talking about in the square, in the CBD.
Okay. And councillor Wood, we've got some. The speed limit for questions is also up for debate. We're going. Councillor Wood.
Sorry, Mr Chair. Just given I believe we're about to have the debate about the city centre, could you just let all council know what are the boundaries exactly we're talking about? Are we just refining ourselves to square? Or are we talking anything within the inner ring road? So Princess, Walding, Pitt and Ferguson.
Through the chair, so if we're talking about the city centre, at least how we're looking at it from the city centre business case, it is everything within that inner ring road, so the Ferguson, Pitt, Grey, Walding, Princess Street, so within that square.
Inclusive or exclusive? So including 30k's on those streets or only the ones that are inside it?
It would not include those streets.
Okay, thank you.
Great. That concludes questions. Thank you both. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, James. I'll move with the additional recommendation that's on the screen that wasn't in the papers, that council confirm that the scope of the draft speed management plan 2025 stage 1 will include variable speed limits for all schools within Palmerston North and Te Wanaka Road / State Highway 56 intersection and an intersection speed zone for Longburn Rongotia Road number 1 line, and look for a seconder. Councillor Naylor. Open it up for any comments or debates. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just to indicate that I do have an additional
You can speak to it now,
recommendation.
and we'll bring that up. Do you want to read it to the meeting, and we'll screen the screen?
Great.
And that's been moved and seconded by the Mayor, I understand.
Thank you. So the recommendation is that the scope of stage 1 of the speed management plan include the city centre, and there's a few reasons that I would like to put to the meeting around why I'd hope you'd be able to consider including this in the conversation now. The first is that this has simply been long overdue. This has been just about to happen ever since I joined council in 2016, and longer I'm hearing. So, you know, at some point we actually need to say, let's do this rather than just wait and hope that it gets there. There's absolutely a compelling case to review it. I don't have a predetermined view around what that outcome of that review needs to be, but we need to get on with actually giving ourselves the opportunity to come into line with city centres across New Zealand. It will, I was quite surprised actually by some of the answers. This will absolutely enable growth. We've already got growth coming. There's housing that's come into the city centre. We've had Safari Group. That is loading more and more people into the city centre. So there is growth happening and more that could be enabled. It's absolutely about road safety, especially for pedestrians, people on bikes and bus users. And it'll help make the centre a destination rather than a shortcut to Woodville. Like, we should actually get on with doing the work here. I think this idea of just kind of, you know, we'll do a bit in 2025 and a bit in 2026, so that's just going to be consultation fatigue for people, because they're just going to be getting speed limits after speed limits after speed limits, having just had some conversations about speed limits. So I think we have a really quite clear option in front of us here. We can keep ignoring the city centre. We can just wait and wait and wait and hope to find a unicorn that threads the needle of getting, you know, the right alignment of central government and our local government timing and the rule exactly the right way, and hope that something will happen. But again, it's been, you know, 9 years in my time now, and it certainly hasn't happened. Or we can just get on with it, open the conversation, hear from the community about what they'd like to see in terms of the speed environment in the city centre, and respond to it. So I'm firmly of the view that we should get on with it, and would ask you colleagues for your support on this recommendation.
Thank you. I'll go to the Mayor before I go to you, Councillor Johnson, just as a seconder. Oops, sorry, I'll keep you on this.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, I strongly urge you to support this. I've been here 12 years, and this has been a discussion for quite a while. To be fair to the officers, and I appreciate that some of them are relatively new into their roles, but we're the only council, we're the only city council in the country that I'm aware of, just did a Google search, that doesn't have a lower speed limit. So just give you an understanding, all the metros, the Wellingtons, Christchurches, Taurongas, Aucklands, Hamilton and Dunedin definitely have a lower speed zone in their central business districts. But even in some of the suburbs and neighbourhoods, they have lower speed zones as well. But then when you're getting Blenheim, Nelson, Invercargill, New Plymouth, Napier, Timaru and alike all in the space as well, the outlier is us. And yet we've got a really, really defined and strong central city area. So it does seem a bit bizarre that we haven't done this work. So to support the BCA process, which the officers referred to many times, around safety, I think is a no-brainer. We have a large green space in the middle of the city. It's used for events. There's lots of pedestrians around. It just makes sense that we have a lower speed, you know, a mandated lower speed. Councillor Meehan sort of teased out the question, well, really, can you go any faster? And that was confirmed. You can't really. But there is a few areas around that in a ring road where you possibly could. You know, we have a polytechnic area. We have a head office of a major insurance company right on the edge. We have a justice and police quarter as well. All of those should be included in that inner ring road as a lower speed zone. We have our civic precinct, and of course we have our retail areas as well. Growth, absolutely there is growth. I know of another three inner city developments that are either going to start or in the planning stages. So if we don't be proactive about this, we'll just get what we get given. So I urge you to support this, and then I urge the officers to get in behind it and do the work. A lot of the work's already been done too. There's got an inner city business case going around the bus terminal, so a lot of that work can be picked up and transposed into this. So the reality is, let's get into it and make sure that we can talk to our community about this. There's strong support for this too, by the way. This is not a thing that's just been done to people, the inner businesses within the city. I've only heard a couple of negatives from a couple of old real estate agents, and that's about it. Everyone else is pretty pro this, so I urge you to support it, and thank Councillor Barrett for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment about the inclusion of the Te Wanaka Road State Highway 56 intersection, because I think that this is actually a really important piece of work. The speeds on that section of road are holding up development at Kiki-Whenua. The rezoning was done years ago, and it's been held up largely because of the inability to get the speed down on that road to allow development to occur. So I think, though it looks like just a small line, I think it's very important, and I'm really pleased that officers have put it forward. It's priority if we want to get development going and we want to get houses built in the city. So I'm very happy to see that there, and the rest of it I have no problem with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just to speak to the additional recommendation, councillors, who is asking for this? I mean, it's been talked about for so long because it's not a priority. Not one person in my time in the last couple of years in council has said, William, why oh why isn't the city centre 30 kilometres an hour? Because in the majority of cases, as Councillor Meehan deftly outlined, people travel what is the safe and appropriate speed to do so due to the engineering of those roads. But on the extremities of those roads, Campbell Street, Lombard Street, the end of Main Street, perfectly appropriate to go 50 kilometres an hour. So why would we limit it for the entire city centre to 30 when really, in the areas where it's important, when you're not able to get up to 50 kilometres in the square anyway, because you've got grazed crossings and corners and all sorts of bits due to the engineering and design of the road that prevent you from doing it. So why has this not been done for the last decade? Because it doesn't really do anything. I mean, people will travel the appropriate speed in the area that they're at. The mover put there's a compelling case to review it. I haven't heard a compelling case, so I'm interested in the right reply if there is something that I'm not seeing here. But the argument that we're loading so many more people into the city centre that we have to make it 30 kilometres an hour, I don't know if you've looked out the window, it's not packed. We're not at the breaking point of the city centre that it needs to suddenly be lowered to 30 or we'll have huge radical safety problems. I think characterising the square as a shortcut to Woodville is not a fair reflection of what most people use our square for. But safety is always a balance with usability. When a councillor asks a question to officers, well, will 30 kilometres be safer than 50? Well, what are the officers supposed to say? No? Of course it will be. Will 20 be safer than 30? Yes. Will 10 be safer than 20? Yes. Will 5 kilometres an hour be safer than 10? Of course. So that's not an argument in and of itself. What we're doing here is discussing the usability of our city centre. And in light of hearing no compelling argument that this would achieve anything, in light of hearing no compelling argument that anybody in our city is genuinely asking for this, aside from a few councillors around this table, I don't see why we would do this. If this is what you passionately believe in, we've got an election coming up, put it on your campaign flyers and campaign on it. But I don't see this as a priority for the city, so I'm not going to vote for it.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm a little bit concerned with us needing to go out to our community and ask questions that we've, asked very similar questions not so long ago, and where 378 submitters have made the effort to come and give us our views. I accept the officer's comments that we do need to package that up a little bit more differently because it's changed a little bit in that time. But I think, with the fatigue and frustration from our community who sometimes tell us things and then feel that we haven't listened and then we're asking the same question again, I don't think it helps with confidence that the community has in us or our processes. So I think the consultation, I realise that'll come back in August, but I think we need to be really clear about the specific nature of what it is we're wanting to find out and why that is, and perhaps tap into the information that has already been provided to us and really do a light touch, specifically targeting those schools where there have been changes since 2023. In terms of the additional recommendation, I also do not see this as a priority, and the officers have been really clear that they feel that it would be difficult to do this under the current rule and that it would be difficult to get it across the line, and I simply don't want to muddy the waters with something that I already think should be a light touch consultation and to fill in the gaps with what we have to do. We've got a time frame for the school signs of July next year, and that's why we need to push it through. I also don't like crossing things over the triennium. We will be approving a document in August, and then consultation will be started at the end of October with a completely different council. Whether that council is supportive of us including additional things that officers don't believe will really be likely to get across the line, yeah, I don't know. So from my perspective, I would rather keep it smaller, simpler, and to just the the issues that officers have identified in the 3 bullet points in recommendation 1, I won't be supporting recommendation 2.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. I'm very happy to actually support all recommendations that are before us. In respect of recommendation 2, our CBD is actually, it does have an accident rate and has involved injuries, and that information is actually known and researched in terms of the Central City indicative business case. So there is actually a need to ensure that we make our CBD as safe as possible. In terms of the Central City indicative business case, I actually sit on the the user group for that, and I think that all of the business people are actually involved in that are actually quite happy for it to be reduced to 30 if that comes to pass. Also in that regard as well is that the information that we've actually got through the CCIBC is that there is a significant amount of through traffic that actually goes through our central city, avoiding the ring road, and these people actually just move through, transit through the city, and don't provide any benefits whatsoever to local business. All they do is cause a significant build-up of traffic. So by looking at 30 kilometres within the CBD, that will help the transition and improve the vibe of our CBD. It would also provide clarity and consistency in terms of setting a speed limit which people will actually understand and be able to adhere to. Yep, the CBD, a lot of people actually travel at 30 kilometres an hour, but there are parts of the CBD where people do exceed that 30 kilometre an hour, and it is unsafe. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting all recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Zebulon.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I have some similar comments to Councillor Naylor about consultation fatigue, specifically around speed. And I know these are factors outside our control, but particularly to the public perception of the work we've got in for stage 2. I think if we have got community views on stage 2 projects and then haven't done anything to address the speed environments through no fault of our own, I don't think it's a given that the situation has significantly changed for those residents or the road users. And as regards Summerhill Drive, there was a whole technical traffic assessment done for Plan Change G, and then we heard in the chambers just a couple of weeks ago that nothing's changed to the extent that it's holding up development. So I think it's more likely that local communities on these roads will think they've asked us and we've told them, and then nothing's changed and now they're asking us again. So when we do get to stage 2, I just don't want us to overcook our investigations where they are already well supported. Realise that's not in this recommendation, but I thought it was important to note because it is in the wider report. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McLeod.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm actually in favour of recommendation 1, but I won't be voting for recommendation 2 for the same reason that Councillor Wood have actually outlined. Actually, it's summed up very beautifully. I do not see this as a priority, colleagues, and personally for me, I would say that on average, vehicles or cars, average, vehicle speeds in these areas are already quite low, in my opinion, and primarily due to, traffic signals and narrow roads, roundabouts, and also raised pedestrian platforms or traffic calming engineering that we do around the CBD. And if you're looking at actually going towards, Lombard Street and that sort of thing, like Councillor Wood said, those are 50k is an appropriate, speed to go through if you're on Lombard Street. And if we look at George Street, for example, we get raised pedestrian crossing, which already calms traffic coming through there. If you look at the square, the engineering design that's been done there over the last few years is calming traffic. We have a whole lot of traffic calming options around the CBD that's already making people drop at 30k or 35k an hour. So I don't know what we're trying to do. How low are we going to go? We might as well just put it at 5 or 10 k's per hour. If we want to, increase safety or the severity of crashes or lower the risk issues around the CBD. But personally, I don't see it as a priority, and I'll be voting against this because of the fact that we already have average vehicle speeds in these areas that are already quite low, and 50 km an hour around Lombard Street or North Street or any other street within the ring road is actually appropriate. So for those reasons, I'll be voting against recommendation 2.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll support recommendation 1, but not recommendation 2, for the simple fact, as the Mayor pointed out, we're the only city that doesn't have 30k speed limits in our city. That's because we don't need them. The city design takes care of that. Okay, we're only doing 30 k's an hour around the city. Comments about people taking shortcuts through the city or whatever, I'd say they're lost and not taking a shortcut, because who would try and drive through the city when you've got the ring road to go around if you're not going into the city? Because you're kept down at the speed limit. The design is there, the safety is there. Most people are driving around our city at 30 k's an hour, or they're not in our city.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, really, when you think about it, it's $1 each way, isn't it? It's we want a 30k speed limit in the square. Well, who can do 30 k's in the CBD? If you come in here early in the morning, maybe before 6, you might be able to. But when did you last do 30k up Broadway Ave? I don't think you'd be doing that very often. So I'm just a bit of two minds here. We can't do more than 30k in the CBD now. Let's be honest, maybe one street, I can't think of which one, inside the ring road. And what will the cost be to be setting up this 30k? We are the only one in the country without a 30k speed limit. And as other councillors have pointed out, well, we don't need it because we can't do it. It's the thing that may sway me on this vote is what is the extra cost and why are we spending the money? We can't do 30k in our CBD now, so is it worth spending more money on putting up a sign somewhere saying 30k? Because it's not going to make any difference, is it?
Thank you. Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess for me, officers have told us that adding option 2 into the mix is going to, it's going to be a bit too much. And, I guess that would probably slow up option 1 as well, adding 2 to the mix. So, I think there's a lot of Jota bars around the city, isn't there? And, if you're going any faster than 50, good luck. I guess it's not added at the moment because really it's not really needed. And, I listen to the arguments around me. So I won't be voting for option 2, but I certainly will be voting in favour of 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I take it back to you, Councillor Barrett, for your right of reply, I'll just make a couple of points. First off, that I will separate the 2 recommendations. It's quite clear. My view is the addition of Te Wanaka Road and the Longburn-Rongotia No. 1 line road are important to include. That there's definitely been feedback around the importance and the delay, seeming like, let's get this done, and questioning why, and looking to the city, why aren't we being proactive in this space? So I think that's very timely. Like some of the opposing views on 2, I would also suggest that I haven't heard feedback that this is an important thing to progress. I think the point that it muddies the water and blues the 2 issues of things we have to do around the schools versus things that are optional actually, and the fact that we're an outlier in the other metros and the other larger cities, I don't find that quite the concern. I haven't had public feedback on it. I don't believe there's public appetite to go out and overstretch our mark on some of these roading initiatives. And the city centre has got a wider streetscape plan around the city, around the square at least, and we've been working down Cuba Street. So I think we have been addressing some of those concerns. To say we've done nothing in the space over 12 years, I think is not quite true. We've narrowed up to the plaza, to the coffee shop. We've done, reduced the speeds around this side of the square. many years ago, and there's further work to be done. So to say that we've done nothing in the inner city, I think it's not quite true. We've done quite a lot. And the point that Councillor Naylor made around having this consultation more as a light touch, because we've already had some feedback without trying to make it a big kahuna, I just don't see the need. So that my view would be of an opposing view for 2, but I'm going to go to you, Councillor Barrett, for the right of reply on 2. What happened there? I just come out of the... No, I didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Listening to the debate has been absolutely fascinating. You'd think that what I had suggested was that we had a snap debate today on whether or not it was a 10-kilometer zone. I mean, let's be serious, whether we do it in 2026 or whether we keep kicking the can down the road. I'm shocked to hear the number of people that don't think getting the city centre right is a priority. Like, this is priority 1 for the city. We got to get it going so that we actually have the right match of road environment and the signage around it to enable the growth, the road safety, to ensure that it's used as a destination, not a shortcut, etc., etc. I'm pretty flabbergasted, honestly, to find that this is so controversial for some people. Check your assumptions, folks. Nowhere on the screen does it say what the speed limit will be. It simply says we're going to open the conversation. Absolutely premature to be throwing out numbers on the debate floor today. So I would ask for your support so that we don't end up adding to the 12 years that this can has already been kicked down the road, so that we can have that conversation. If you actually get out there and talk to people in the city center about what kind of speed environment they want, whether they're the businesses, whether they're the road users, there's quite a few people that would actually like to see a calmer city environment, and this would absolutely contribute to it. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. I'm going to put the recommendations separately, as I said before. So this will move recommendation 1 before us. That's unanimous, 12 votes for. And now I'd invite a vote on the recommendation 2. And that is a tied vote, so it lapses for want of a majority. It was 6 votes for and 6 votes against. Thank you, members. That will take us back up to the hearing of submissions, which was item 6, is now redundant, as the submitters haven't attended. But that will take us to the summary of submissions, which is item 7, for Bill Brown Park proposed land lease to Kia Toa Rugby Football Club Incorporated, and invite Glenn Bunny, the property manager, and Sharon Bergerson, the property financial officer, to the table to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Glenn Bunny, Manager Property. So this is a report back with a summary of submissions from the public consultation process around the proposal for Kia Toa to lease some land at Bill Brown Park. There is one change we just need to make to the information regarding submissions. We overlooked one submission that was actually in opposition, submission number 304. So that just slightly changes. The 316 is still the total received, but 305 in support, 306 in support, sorry, 9 against and 1 still neutral. So just a slight correction there. So the report summarises themes of feedback received from the public submission process. Then depicts next steps where we'll consider all submissions and aspects regarding the proposal. And in finality come back with a final report and recommendation on the 20th of August. So happy to take questions.
Thank you, that's great. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Possibly more a question for you, but just in light of none of our submitters showing up to item 6, that does seem quite peculiar. Have we got any comment from our governance team as to whether there was a miscommunication or whether we've heard anything from them?
Fair question.
Sarah Claridge, Governance Advisor. Yes, we have been in contact with all our submitters. They, how many were confirmed? Five confirmed that they were going to attend today. Obviously, they've changed their minds, so they will have the opportunity to speak at the deliberation process if they wish. So we'll just take it as it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and suggest the deliberation will be under a public comment rather than rather than the 10 minutes that they had today. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. When we get the report back, will the matters that were raised in opposition be addressed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be our intent, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
I think that pretty much covers off well, my question related to the issues in table 3.5, particularly around the alcohol-related issues. And so I guess it was really the same question that Councillor Johnson had. Would those be clarified and addressed through the paper that comes back?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes.
Yep, lovely, thank you.
Great, thank you. There's no further questions. Thank you both. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wood, for inquiring about the submission. It's not usual that we have no submitters after a number of 5 that had confirmed not to come, so for whatever reason, that's unknown. But nevertheless, I'm happy to move the recommendation on item 7, which was the committee received the memorandum titled Summary of Submissions, Bill Brown Park Proposed Land Lease to Kia Toa Rugby Football Club Incorporated, presented on the 28th of May 2025, seconded by Councillor Naylor. Open it up for any comments or debate. There being none, I'd invite a vote. That is passed unanimously, 12 votes for. That moves us to item 8, which is the confirmation of our minutes. I'm happy to move the confirm the minutes, and Councillor Naylor second. Any matters arising from those minutes? There being none, I'd now like to invite a vote on those minutes. All good to take John now, or does he have others in support? That is passed, 11 votes for and 1 abstention. Thank you. Just pause 1 minute, members. Should we either break before we take that? Thank you, members. Because there was no submitters wanting to be heard on the Bill Brown Park proposed land lease, we've been fortunate that we've been able to move forward the petition item from what was arranged with the submitter, but there's also an opportunity for others to come and support that had the earlier time and the notification to change plans. So what we're going to do is adjourn now for a morning break for 15 minutes, and that'll bring us back in at 20 past to reconvene that item. Thank you. Item 8's an easy one. We're going to kick off with the minutes. I'll move them. Oh, we did do the minutes, did we? We've done the minutes, which moves us to the petition, item 9, designation of an on-leash dog area at Linklater Reserve, and invite John Charlton, chairperson of the Kelvin Grove Community Association and Corporation, to speak. And if you could introduce your support.
Thank you, Vaughan. Councillors, for the opportunity. I've got Val Burr and Ross Linklater is just joining us. Thanks for coming, Ross. And we have... There's an experienced councillor who knows how to manage it, ex-councillor who knows how to manage his time. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking in support of our competition, our petition. It's a bit of a competition between us and the opposers, which now has 64 signatures to reduce the off-leash area at Linklater Reserve, and Kelvin Grove Community Association was to speak in support of option 5. Our petition is not anti-dogs, it's pro-people. The Kelvin Grove Community Association has invested $15,000 towards the swing bridge and $12,500 towards the Flying Fox at the reserve on behalf of all our residents. We want you to make the park as accessible as possible for everybody. Currently, it isn't. We get regular reports of attacks by poorly controlled dogs on other dogs, children and adults at the reserve. We know that many people avoid going to the park because of these incidents. We want you to make the reserve safe for everybody. This photo shows the result of one attack that is one too many, and that attack was in 2019? That attack was in 2019, so this is an ongoing problem, and it shows that the policy of education and for dog owners isn't working. Early this month, another resident paid $1,000 to her vet after her dog was attacked at Linklater. Most of the incidents are not reported to council, so don't appear in the statistics given in our written submission, We need to stop these attacks from happening. The proposed 50-50 split under option 5 is the fairest, clearest, safest and most practical option. Under this option, it will be obvious where dogs are allowed off-leash and where they aren't. At the moment, the area around the children's play equipment and Flying Fox is off limits to dogs. This restriction is not clear and is invariably ignored. If you look at the agenda, you will see that it actually says dogs aren't allowed there, but it's forbidden to dogs, but nobody does that. The original intention, when Ross Linklater sold the land to the council, was for it to be similar to the Esplanade, not a dog park. Somehow that changed, and Val was on the original committee. She doesn't recall any consultation from the original plans to turn it into a dog park or a total off-leash area. Option 5 is the fairest way of returning Linklater Reserve to all residents while still providing a generous area for dogs. As you can see, option 5 divides the reserve roughly in half. This option gives all park users a large exercise area safe from errant dogs. The off-leash area is still huge, about the size of 15 rugby fields by my calculations. It will remain the 4th largest of the 26 off-leash areas in Palmerston North. The total circuit from the Roberts Line car park, which is at the top right of the picture there, around the off-leash area and back to the car park, is roughly the same as walking from here to the fire station and Cook Street and back. So it's no small distance. Is that enough for dog owners? That's the question. So, on behalf of our community in Kelvin Grove, I urge you to read our written submission and support option 5. Please give us back our park. Thank you, and I'm happy to any questions.
Thank you for presenting today, John, and with your support, both at the table and in the gallery. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you for your submission. Just given the strength of your arguments, I'm just wanting to understand why you've changed from option 6 being your preferred option to option 5.
We think it's fairer. It gives it still gives plentiful. 50-50 is a very good split, and it's easier to fence. It gives the dog owners a much bigger exercise area, and while still giving people a large area, the upper red area there for sort of a large exercise area for without encountering off-leash dogs. So we just think it's a better fair 50-50 split between dog owners and people who don't really want to interact with dogs off-leash.
So when you say it's easier to fence, are you aware that option 6 had a shorter fence across? Are you familiar with?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I shouldn't say easier to fence, but it's easier to fence than, say, option 4. I don't think we've talked about it, and I don't think option 6 really is such a big loss in area for the off-leash area. I don't think it's we'll get a lot of support. So okay. I think option 5 is a more practical one, but fencing is really up to the council staff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you. When it was first opened, Ross will remember it, because I know I certainly do. Can you remember what sort of people were going there? Were there lots of people going up there jogging, or was it just lots of people exercising their dogs?
Excuse me. There's a lot of people that use that park now, certainly. And I think, in support of what has been put to you today, that if it can be divided and it's almost naturally fenced like that, if a spring-loaded gate, walking gate was put there, so if a dog is roaming on the dog off-leash area, it can't automatically walk through to the other area. That's really just about all that's needed to have this installed the way that is being talked about. There's a natural fence line coming down, and I think it would resolve the issue of what's being the problem, and control it nicely and still allow dogs to be off lead in a given area.
Would you see that gate being child-proof gate? Would you see the gate being a child-proof gate?
Yeah.
Well,
further to answer your question, I know a lot of people from interaction on our Facebook page and from when we were getting the petition, they go to the park, they'd have a bad experience. Some off-leash dog would come up and run up to them and they'd say, oh, I'm not going back to the park now. So I think there's an ongoing thing of people trying the park out and being deterred from their experiences there, and that's certainly what's happened to my wife and I since we came back into Palmerston North in 2020. We don't like going there because, you know, it only needs one aggressive dog owner and you don't want to go back.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have comments.
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your petition. I guess the difficulty for us is going to be to weigh up the feedback that we've had versus your feedback and your petition. I mean, what is your answer to the fact that about 75% of the people that gave us feedback wanted it to remain off-leash entirely?
Right. Well, further to what I said in our written submission, There are about 9,000 registered dogs in Palmerston North, and there's about 90,000 people. So there's one dog for every 10 people. So the feedback they've got is disproportionately from dog owners. It's not a true representation of the population of Palmerston North. That would be my first comment there. So I think you have to look at those ratios critically. Of the people who did respond, not all dog owners were against fencing off the park. There was a proportion of people who were happy to have the park fenced and divided was smaller than the number of dog owners who think so. Some dog owners were in favour of it. If you actually look at the literature which they put out, it was a nice cute little fluffy dog on the front, not a big bull mastiff or Alsatian or other aggressive, large, frightening dog. So, and those are the sort of dogs, you get all sorts of dogs in the park. And then I think a lot of the responses came from the fact that there was a large number of signs actually at the entrances to the park saying, make a submission. And as I've explained, you get more dog owners going to the park than people who don't want to go to the park because of the dogs, because they've already been deterred. So those people who might be against the whole place being an off-leash area wouldn't have seen those signs and would be less likely to respond. So I think you've got to take the feedback consultation of that, look at it critically, because I don't think it was truly representative of all citizens of Palmerston North.
Okay, I take your points on that, although I may not 100% agree with them, but we also...
Sorry, can I just, sorry to interrupt you, Lorna, Val, who runs our Facebook page, has got a comment to make as well.
Okay, if I can get this thing to work. There were people who left messages on the Facebook page that they were just, how would we put it? They had their experiences with it were, oh God, it's gone completely out of my mind. Very intelligent part, but I forgot it. The people who were leaving the messages were saying that they had, like one was the child only need to look at the park and think it was getting taken there, driving past or something, and it was, the child was scared and started screaming. You know, things like that are really, you know, are really frightening to sort of think that somebody is going to have a, you know, an experience with the park that they don't even want to go in the vicinity of it. There have been, like the little dog that got attacked was a little foxy, and the big dog, I don't know, was much bigger, was able to just shake it. And, you know, so that's, you know, that's quite a terrifying sort of thought, and the people were watching that happening, the family or whoever it was with the little dog. And that was off, both dogs were off lead, and one was chasing a ball, its own, that had been thrown, and the other dog suddenly appeared. And it's just frightening to think that it's all out of control. And like, who would go up there and use the barbecue, or like we've had fun days up there and stuff. Who would do all of that stuff if somebody else's dog is going to come roaring through and attack them?
Okay, my next question, given, just to go back to where my original question was, which was that 75% of the people that fed back to us were in favour of it remaining off-leash, and your point that you felt that that was a skewed distribution, mostly of dog owners. We also had a poll on our council Facebook page, and so you couldn't really say that that would be only dog owners that would answer that, so anybody could answer that really. And again, the majority of people were not in favour of making parts of Linklater on leash, so do you think that that was an unfair
I don't know how that
well?
poll was promoted, so whether a true cross-section of Palmerston North had a chance to respond to it, or once again whether, and also I think, and you'll probably know this from your, I'm sure you know this from your previous council experience, people who most respond to these things are the people who are going to be most affected by it, so the dog owners are probably more likely to respond than you know, people who, than the general public, but we know. Actually, no, I'm going to approach this from a different way. Our real point is it was never supposed to be a dog park. We don't know how it became a dog park. It was for the benefit of all people in Palmerston North, same as the Esplanade is down the other end, and you wouldn't turn the esplanade into an entire off-leash area, would you? So why is Linklater Reserve an entire off-leash area? It should never have happened, and it should be put back to being fair for all people.
Well, I understand that that's your point of view. My questions were around the weight of feedback that we've had and what your response to that is, and whether you feel that your feedback is more representative in some way.
Oh, I can remember my answer to it now. One of the ones who was vehemently opposed to it being changed, I looked at their Facebook page, and he or she lived in Alaska, and I wasn't actually sure that Alaska people actually needed to know anything about Palmerston North dog parks. He or she deleted their post after I pointed out, why are you responding from Alaska?
So Lorna, I think our point is that just the fact that the majority of people who responded were in favour of keeping the off-leash area over the whole park isn't necessarily germane or should be overriding other considerations like what the original intent of the park was, what the agreement with the Linklaters was when the land was sold to the council, which was a park for all people, and what is the right thing to do as a councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, John, Ross, and Val. Thank you, Val. Sorry.
Nobody's here to me.
Look, my question just really is just around perhaps just getting your understanding or your views just in respect of option 3 and option 4. Now, my understanding is that one of the key issues is that the play area is actually not fenced, so therefore dog owners are just actually basically allowing their dogs to run through the play areas. So can I just get your views, please, in terms of just how you feel about perhaps option 3, option 4 as perhaps being something viable?
Okay. Well, you see the white circles on the map up there. They are children's play areas, and according to the regulations, there's supposed to be a 35, you're not supposed to have a dog on leash or off leash within 35 metres of those particular points. Now, if you actually draw circles around them, they join up quite nicely, and they also overlap the path going up from the Kelvin Grove Road car park up to the uphill areas, the northern areas. So under the regulations as they stand at the moment, there's a large area in there which you're not supposed to have dogs at all, but it's only in very fine print, and it gets totally ignored because it's the main way people get up to the uphill areas. So by fencing it, certainly making the downhill area on leash is going to avoid unpleasant incidents with dogs being off leash. It's going to protect the barbecue area, it's going to protect the children's play area. The wetland area, now I was talking to one of the council staff about this just before this meeting. We know of, in fact, it was one of the dogs which was involved in an attack recently. Somebody said, the owner said, well, last year it got into the wetland and killed a pukeko. Now, some people might think pukekos are pests, but I don't know if it's a good idea to have uncontrolled dogs running around in the wetland and probably doing their business in there. And either that or you've got to fence off the wetland area separately, which sounds a little bit impractical if you want dogs to go in there to have a swim. But option 5 just seems to be the fairest 50-50 split to us.
Yeah, okay. I'm not overly familiar with the area there, but
the wetland area is sort of right and down the bottom.
Yeah, bottom left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if option 3 was appropriate, off-leash people could actually use the pathway off-leash from the Kelvin Grove car park. Would that be? Is that correct?
Sorry, I'll just get you to. I'll just look at the map for option 3, and then.
So that's figure 13. Now, on the bottom left there, you've got the wetland, but there is actually a path that appears to actually run from the car park up into the greater part of Linklater Park.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So I just want to know whether or not people could actually still
Yeah.
park in Kelvin Grove car park and then off-leash their dogs immediately to allow them to go up into Linklater Park.
the disadvantage of option 3, it doesn't give people who don't want to interact with off-leash dogs an area where they can go for a decent walk. If you want to go and get your 30 minutes exercise, you can't do it at Linklater Reserve under option 3 because that entire huge area, 3/4 of the park, is all off-leash. So if my wife and I wanted to go for a walk for half an hour around the park, we can't do it at Linklater Park under option 3 because it's we're going to run into uncontrolled dogs. So I don't think option 3 is fair to people who do not want to interact with off-leash dogs.
Okay, thanks, John. That's really helpful. So just in terms of, just two other questions. One is, how much car parking is there up in Roberts Line?
It has just been expanded. There's 3 rows of car parks, so there's at least 40, 50 car parks spaces there. Ross, you more familiar with it?
I can't give you the actual number of car parks, but there is good car parking off Kelvin Grove Road, plus there is good car parking off Roberts Line. So the actual number of cars, I can't, or the number of spaces I can't guarantee. But the likes of what is on the wall there is access to both of those areas directly from a car park, depending on which road you're going to park at. So I think the bases are covered fairly well.
Okay, no, that's fine. And just a comment probably from you, John, just in terms of Linklater Park, in terms of its relevance to Kelvin Grove residents, like the availability of other parks and things.
Right. Well, thank you, Pat. Yeah, I would point out that just the same as Mayor Grant continually refers to Palmerston North as being the middle child or the underprivileged city of New Zealand, Kelvin Grove has it's got a population of over 8,000 people. It's roughly the size of Dannevirke according to a recent council report, and it's got very few facilities. We don't have a library, we don't have a commercial hub with a pub or a cafe or anything in it. You've got to go over the railway lines to the rest of the city for most of our facilities. And one of the few things we do have is a decent park, but we don't get the use of it. Because it's turned into a dog park. In fact, as you will see if you read through the minutes, one of the responses we got from the dog owners, the council got from the dog owners, was of saying if residents want to not interact with dogs, they should go to the Esplanade. Well, the Esplanade is a 20-minute drive away from Kelvin Grove, and do we really want to encourage people to drive all the way across town to enjoy a park when there's one on their doorstep? There's traffic, there's petrol, there's poor utilisation of their, it's more time, they're less likely to do it. We want you, councillors, to give us back our park. It was one of the few things that Kelvin Grove as a community has on its doorstep.
Great, thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you all for presenting the petition on behalf of Kelvin Grove Community Association. Thank you.
How do we turn that off?
I'll move the recommendation that the Strategy and Finance Committee receive the petition. I'm going to add on to what's there from the Kelvin Grove Community Association for information. Seconded by Councillor Naylor. I suggest we just receive this and take any further comment with the officer's report, if that's okay, and invite a vote. That is passed, 10 votes. Did everyone vote? No. Clearly not. Can we take the vote again? Invite a vote. That is passed unanimously, 12 votes for. Thank you. Now moves us to item 10, which is the option off-leash dog controls at Linklater Reserve, and invite Stacey Solomon, our policy analyst, to present this item. Thank you.
Atamaria Koto, Stacey Solomon, Policy Analyst. First to the KGCA, ngā mihi kia koutou o te kaupapa o te rātina. John, Val, Ross, Fran and Adrian, ka pai tō mahi. Thank you for coming today and for your ongoing engagement and taking the time to present the petition on behalf of all of its signatories to this committee. E te kaunihera koromātua, the report you have today responds to the resolution this committee made last May to receive advice on the possible options for amending the on-leash controls at Linklater Reserve. That resolution came from the original request of the Kelvin Grove Community Association in their submission to the review of our dog control policy. The council has around 20 off-leash dog exercise areas across the city. You'll know that Linklater Reserve is by far the largest of these reserves. It's also the largest fully contained reserve, so it's got a fence all the way around it. It has been an off-leash area since 2011. At that time, that dog control policy review made that reserve an off-leash area. As pointed out in the written feedback you received from the Community Association, while the reserve was not purchased specifically for use as a dog exercise area over time, the reserve has developed a very clear identity of its own in Palmerston North and beyond, which is strongly associated with that use. On the engagement, we had a good response, but it was a mixed response, and I'd like to bring to your attention a few points. I'd just start by saying that the feedback the council received to early engagement was impressive, not on its numbers, but on the care and thoughtfulness of the respondents. Notably, the majority of the feedback was well considered, it was well balanced, and to my mind, what really stood out was that the community was making efforts to be solutions focused. They acknowledged the potential for improvement and were sharing ideas to meet everyone's need instead of attributing fault or criticism, which was good to see. It's very clear that there is a strong connection from the community to this reserve. People who don't use the reserve because of previous bad experiences or the possibility of having a similar experience in future are disappointed that they can't use the reserve or feel that they can't for those reasons. Equally, there's genuine concern from people who like things the way they are and wish that they would stay that way, that their off-leash area may be significantly reduced. From the feedback, we know people are using the reserve with their dog because their dog can be off-leash, but they're also using the reserve to participate in other recreation activities as well. So they're not going there just to have their dog off-leash, they're doing other things there as well with all the other activities they can do. Some people aren't going with the dog at all, they're going for their own health and well-being, particularly for Kelvin Grove residents. It's also their local park. There is agreement on all sides of this discussion that people should absolutely be able to enjoy the reserve without the fear or possibility of intimidation or injury from the few uncontrolled dogs that are being exercised there off-leash. The community also continue to have incredibly high expectations of one another to be responsible dog owners, to exercise and socialise their dogs safely and appropriately, to be responsible reserve users, and to follow the rules to keep everyone safe. There is some acknowledgement that it is a small minority of reserve users who make it difficult for the majority of the reserve users to be there. The paper you have has provided options to amend the off-leash controls, as well as an option which keeps the controls as they are now, if that is part of the discussion that you wish to have. We have officers here from Parks and Animal Management who will be able to support the discussion of this committee today. hia mana he pātai. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Stacey. Appreciate how well you covered that. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Stacey. Just on page 38, figure 4, the question of do you take your dog to Linklater Reserve, I see that the statistics show that 918 say yes, 48 say no, but it's reflected there that that's only 83%, when to my calculations 95. I just wanted to check, is there some missing data there in terms of people who might have said unsure or I don't know, or prefer not to answer, or is it actually just 918 versus 48, meaning it's 95% to 4? Just the numbers don't add up.
Sure. Our feedback form had a number of logic questions in it. So to answer this question, do you take your dog to Linklater Reserve, they would have answered, I am a dog owner. So it would have come in there. So there were, not all of the respondents would have answered that question.
So that's exclusively of dog owners?
Yes, the ones
Right.
that, if they answered that particular question, the form would have taken them through a logic jump to another question that said, well, if you have a dog, are you taking it to Linklater?
That makes sense, thank you. In point 2.1 on page 34, and I've heard this point mentioned a number of times, that Linklater Reserve is the largest dog exercise area in Palmerston North. My understanding is almost the entirety of the river, apart from the section between Fitzherbert and Te Arakatahi, is a dog exercise area. Surely that is far larger than Linklater Park.
I think what I should have said there, and to express it more clearly, it's the largest fenced area.
Okay.
It's contained, it's what makes it quite popular for off-leash dog exercising.
That makes sense. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Stacey. Just a couple of questions. The first one is that I guess just around the proportionality of responses. I note in the paper that council officers actually contacted a lot of dog interest groups as part of the consultation. Just wanting to get some comment from you as to whether or not that approach may in fact actually have skewed the results somewhat.
We did pursue a number of different avenues to collect feedback from the community on if they would support making a change at Linklater. Certainly signage at Reserve was one of those ways. We always want to be making sure we are collecting the voice of the people who are interested and affected. Linklater Reserve users that are using the reserve now are interested and affected. We did other things as well to support that though.
Sorry, just might pause. It's just maybe not appropriate for members of the public to come and approach members during the formalities. Sorry, that's okay. Maybe the member might want to excuse himself from the table to engage. Back to you. Sorry, Stacey, for the interruption.
Fine. We did other things to support the consultation because obviously it's not just a dog exercise area. It's a park. It's a reserve. So we did some flyer drops around Kelvin Grove as well. We contacted businesses, schools, the rest homes in the area as well to provide them with the information. We did consider having a drop-in at the reserve itself, but on reflection, for the reasons that were brought up by the Kelvin Grove Community Association, having a drop-in in a neutral space was likely to be a better idea, given that if people aren't going to the reserve for reasons that are their own, perhaps because they are fearful of dogs, coming to a neutral space would support them to do that. We used posters, media releases, we advertised via the radio, we had social media as well, so we did try to cover as many different interest groups as possible, but certainly dog users are interest groups.
Yep, thank you. And that just brings me to my next question, which is just around, you used a QR code through signage at the park. So with the QR code, was there anything that we could do to actually validate perhaps the number of responses? Like, for example, could somebody actually put in multiple responses using the same QR code and that would remain undetected?
Ooh, I don't know if I know the answer to that question. Liv knows the answer to that question.
Fabulous.
Good morning, Olivia Wicks, Comms Manager. The QR code, we have a tracker on and it tracks to the IP address of the property. So the only It doesn't mean we can see where someone lives, we can just see like a digit, I guess. The only, I guess, thing I'd flag is that obviously if there are a few people who live in a house who choose to make a submission, that could see an increase there. What we do find though is that QR codes, we are seeing if they do work over time, they have dropped off in popularity significantly from people using them. So this one didn't have a big uptake. We could see quite clearly that the biggest driver was the social media. You know, almost within 24 hours, it was going off, which you all would have seen as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Stacey, for your report. I wonder if you could say why officers chose not to make a specific recommendation, but to put up a series of options.
I suppose we did that in a way because the resolution that's prompted this report wasn't to make the change, it was to provide options on what could be done. So there is still an entirely reasonable option that the council chooses not to make the changes that are that could come from making an area on leash. One of the options you've got there is the last option, which is not change the controls but do other things to support better behaviour in the reserve, more responsible dog ownership to try and improve safety there as well. So this is engagement. We're very careful through this process not to commit this council to making a change or any specific change. So that's why you have options rather than a specific recommendation. We hope that the information that's in the report is able to support you to make a decision on them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Naylor.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. The people who submitted around this petition this morning mentioned the amount of people who, you know, a large proportion of those who submitted were dog owners as opposed to a representative of the broader community. The Facebook post that is mentioned on page 41 of the papers, I couldn't find that on the Facebook page. Has that been taken down?
I believe it should still be there. I am happy to send the direct link to that specific post if that would help.
Okay, well, I couldn't find it. But did it have a picture of a dog on that?
It did not. What you see here, I think, was it did? Perfect. It did not.
So it just had this question, should parts of Linklater be made on-leash areas? Is that all? It just had the question and no image?
Yep, so that was the poll. I believe the pinned post in the top of that poll was the information that directed them through to the website with basically what our engagement questions were.
Okay, thank you. That's all from me.
Councillor Michelard.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I was about to step out because one of the questions get answered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stacey. There's no further questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Members, I'm open to other feedback, and I've had an indication from Councillor Wood at the break he'd like to propose a recommendation to put to the meeting, and we'll take it from there. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put to the committee option 5, seconded, I believe, by Councillor Naylor. Are you happy for me to speak to that now, Mr. Chair? Or would you like me to read the option out?
I think we're fine to progress.
Right.
We understand what option 5 is, and so that's in your name and seconded by Councillor Naylor. You wish to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start by thanking the officers for the opportunity and the optionality in this report. This would have to be one of the best reports I've read in the last 3 years I've been on council, so thank you to Stacey in particular for giving councillors some incredibly detailed, well thought out choices that we can now deliberate at this table, so I really appreciate that. The petition, I want to note to councillors, wasn't counted in the summary submissions, so I think that adds something to the statistics that we've been looking at. But as you all know, I'm very interested in statistics, And I believe quite strongly that we have a survivorship bias in the consultation document that we have, in that 82% of our submitters both own a dog and use the park, versus 48, which is 4%, own a dog and don't use the park, and 13% who don't own a dog or prefer not to say. And so I think if you have an understanding of what the survivorship bias is, it's effectively saying that people who already utilise that space are going to be the ones most likely to engage in it, and therefore the people who don't utilise the space because either they're afraid of it, because they've heard bad things about it, or for any other reason that might incline somebody not to use it, are then less likely to respond to consultation, and therefore we get a bias in that only those that are currently utilising it, or primarily those who are currently utilising it for that purpose, feed into this process. And so I don't think it necessarily reflects the views of those who are too scared to use the park. I think fear of regular dog attacks is a reasonable concern that's been raised by the Kelvin Grove Community Association. The problem here, to be really clear, is not good dog owners. The problem is bad. When we have children's play areas and barbecue areas that are designed to be used for people in our community to either exercise, to have fun with their friends and family, or to use for community purposes, when you've got off-leash dogs walking through a path up to use the back end of the park, I think option 5 addresses that in the fairest possible way. It strikes a balance between safety and usability of the park. It still leaves, as the Kelvin Grove Community Association outlined, 13 hectares of land available for off-leash. And what I found quite clear through the consultation is there were a number of people who were open to a proposal but unsure of the percentage. And I mean, if I'd voted in that Facebook poll, I don't know what I would have said. I might have said no, because I don't want to see the whole park made off-leash, nor do I want to see 80% of the park made off-leash. But if you're talking 40 or 50% so that there's a balance, I might be quite open to supporting that. And so what we're asking you to do today here, councillors, is not to make the decision that we go to 50-50 on or off-leash. What we are asking you here today is that we give the community that option, then it's clear what we are consulting on and clear what we're proposing, and then we will get feedback based on whether or not people support that specifically. If the feedback comes in overwhelmingly that that is not the interest of the community, then I'm quite open-minded to then not supporting this being the final option that we go with, or this, apologies, I'm very open-minded to leaving the park as it is if that was what came back from consultation, but I think a question of just vaguely should we or should we not leaves too much for interpretation. So I think by giving the community a choice, it responds to what has been a very clear signal from the Kelvin Grove Community Association and responds, I think, to striking that balance between what is fair in our community. So I hope I open up the debate. I'm very interested in other councillors' perspectives on this.
Councillor Naylor, do you want to speak as a second? I'll go to you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Councillor Wood has outlined that really well. And just to add, I think what's been made really clear through this process is that there are parts of our community who would like to be able to use that reserve, but aren't using it currently because they don't feel safe. And I think for the fairness of all of our community, I think we need to find a solution that does provide an opportunity for members of our community to go and utilise that park in a safe way. So I think this 50-50 option is a good option to be identified as our preferred option for consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a dog owner, and I've been a dog owner all my life, I have showed dogs, I've trained dogs, I've judged dogs, and I've judged obedience. I've been involved with dogs and dog world quite a lot. When the Linklater block first opened, I was one of the first persons to take my dog down there. I think it was the second or third day it had been open, and there was 3 of us there. I had my German Shepherd, Pete had his lab, and another gentleman had his Rottweiler. And the 3 dogs were running around the hill, and they were having fun and playing and banging into each other. And the 3 of us just standing there talking, watching our dogs. And we're saying, what a marvellous, marvellous thing this is. You know, the city has gotten us somewhere we can take our dogs and they can have a ball. And then the guy with the Rottweiler said this: don't worry, the anti-dog brigade will soon stop this. There's no way they'll allow this to continue. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people have let the good dog owners down. They've taken their uncontrolled dogs up there. They've let them run around. I've seen dogs running around up there with the owner chasing them, trying to get them to come back to them. And I'd sit there and go, oh my grief. The problem is not the dogs. The problem is the uncontrolled dogs. And that is the uncontrollable owners who don't know how to train a dog, do not know how to control a dog, and they have let the dog owners that can down. We're now in a situation where we're going to lose that hill and that fun part where the dogs go up and down on that, and we're going to be up at top. Well, I agree, we have to do a split, because those that have dogs that can't control their dogs have destroyed it for those that can. I will support a 50-50 split, but I hope in 20 years' time we're not looking at cutting that back even further. Because for years I've seen this happen. Dogs get the bad reputation. People who don't like dogs will pick on the dogs, but it's about time we realise it's not the dogs that are to blame, it's the owners. So I'll support a 50-50 split, but I do recall that when that park opened up, it was a dog off-leash park, and it was a dog park. And when people say, give us back our park, well, it was our park first. And I was there at the beginning too, Val. So I'm quite happy to say we'll give you the bottom half and we'll take the top half for our dogs. But in 20 years' time, please leave the top half alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and 20 years' time, I don't think I'm going to have to worry about that, Councillor Finlay. Look, I'm really pleased to support option 5. The reality is that, this is actually a public park, and so therefore it needs to be a shared park. And Councillor Finlay has actually, I think, probably outlined some of the issues with dog ownership, and that is some owners, their dogs do not have recall. I own a dog, and my dog doesn't have recall, so therefore he stays on a leash. So that's just how it is. And I think that, I guess, one of the things which, when I read this paper, I was a little bit concerned about the skewing of the statistics in terms of those that favoured the status quo. I was just a little bit concerned about that. Hence, I'm quite happy to support option 5. Option 5 actually, very, very importantly for me, actually protects the children and families areas to ensure that that area there remains on leash, and I'm sure the rules around dogs not within 30 metres of those amenities will be kept in force. I think there is sufficient car parking up in Roberts Line from what the petitioner has actually provided us, that information. I think that's fine. And dog owners can actually take their dogs out of their cars from Kelvin Grove on leash and walk them up to the upper part of the park, and they can off leash them up there. So I think this is actually a good solution, and I think one which will actually support the Kelvin Grove community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Well, I'm going to put a dissenting voice into the mix. I'm not going to support this option. I actually don't think there's any need for change at all. Apologies to the Kelvin Grove Community Association, but I don't believe that there's public support for changing this to any degree. When Kelvin Grove Community Association came to us to put this problem to us, as I recall, I was one of the people that was interested to explore whether or not there would be support for on leash, because I could see that they had raised some concerning issues. And we've gone out, we've tested it, we've had the response. And it's interesting to me that when we get an overwhelming response that people don't particularly like, it's, oh, well, it was a skewed response. But we've had over 2,000 people give us their opinion, And both of those surveys, the vast majority of people wanted everything to be left as it is. So I don't see the point in going out and doing a consultation and talking to people and then ignoring the responses that you get. What's the point if you just think that you know best anyway? So that's the first reason why I'm opposing it. The second reason I'm opposing it is I actually don't think that segregating dogs off from everybody else is a helpful thing to do. Dogs are better if they're socialised with other people. Making a kind of area where, only dogs off-lead can go in this area and everybody else can go in the other area, I actually don't think that's helpful in terms of socialising dogs. And for owners that have got children or want to go on other aspects of the park, how they're meant to divide off their time. They're meant to not exercise the dog and take the kids up to the play area. I mean, I just think this isn't the problem that it's been made out to be. And we have animals that are attacked by dogs all over the city, in on-lead and off-lead areas. I don't think that there's any more of a problem at Linklater Park than there is anywhere else in the city. So I would support option 7, which I think is recommendation 3. So if this fails, I'll be happy to move option 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further speakers. Councillor Wood, right of reply.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you, councillors, for the conversation. I think it's a worthy one. To Councillor Findlay, I'm not part of the anti-dog brigade. I'm sure you'll be happy to know. I own a small dog myself, and I don't feel safe walking at Linklater Park because I see on Facebook regularly the dog attacks that happen up there. And so I appreciate that, as you say, Councillor, a lot of people have let the good dog owners down. And I appreciate that it's not an easy thing for you to support given your history with dogs and for a number of us who have dogs in this community. And I can assure you all today, I will not be here at this table in 20 years' time, so you don't have to worry about that. In terms of the argument against this change, I'd make a few points. Firstly, suggesting that we're separating dogs from everywhere else is not the situation here. Obviously any dogs who are in the up area will be there with their owners, so they will be socialised with other people. But B, we are not prohibiting, under this suggestion, dogs from being allowed in the other area of the park. What we are saying is they would be there on a leash. So we're not, I don't think that is a realistic risk in terms of what we're suggesting. In terms of the argument around, are we ignoring consultation? It's a fair point to make, Councillor, but what I would say is I've heard the same argument put the other way by almost every councillor in this room. What our job is to read the submissions, understand the feedback, and then make a values-based judgment on what we get. And so I'm not saying that I'm a pure utilitarian, that I will support whatever the majority supports every single time. Of course there is nuance. I recall a decision we made on Pioneer Highway where the majority of submissions were in favour of keeping a left-hand turn lane, but we decided not to do it because the decision and the will of the table was actually there was a greater benefit rather than just those who are utilising that area to remove that turn lane, even though the business owners who there wanted it. So I think it's not fair to put a black and white view on consultation that we either we're all in or we're all out. I think, as I outlined in my opening comments, a lot of people in the community might be open to 50%, but might not have been open to a higher percentage. And so when you put a blank question, would you support areas of Linklater Park being made on leash? The natural question that people ask is, well, what areas? So that is the question we seek to answer today, to give the community that clarity, and then we will see what the feedback is on the time. As I reiterate, this is not making the decision. And I'm sure every councillor here is open-minded to the result of that, deciding that this may not be the course that we go down. But I think there is enough concern for me, and I hope enough concern for the majority of council at this table, as to the lack of safety at this reserve, to at least ask our community the question. So I hope you'll support it.
Thank you. Just for the record and for those online, I will read the recommendation. I just took a reflection from your offer earlier, Councillor Wood, that the committee determined that the changes are required to the dog control policy and dog control bylaw to create an on-leash area at Linklater Reserve and adopt the statement of proposal with its preferred option for consultation with the community, being option 5, change the current controls and make half the Linklater Reserve up to the aeroplane on leash with half the reserve remaining off leash. The children's play spaces and equipment continue to be prohibited to dog entities. In the name of Councillor Wood and seconded by Councillor Naylor, I do now invite a vote. The vote's ready. That has passed 10 votes for and 2 against. Thank you. That moves us to our final part 1 item, which is the work schedule. Our Chief Financial Officers are happy to take any questions if there are any, and GM of Corporate Services. Any questions, members? Councillor Barrett.
Thanks. Just on a couple items, just wondered why we're seeing a delay in the draft waste management minimization bylaw.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the reason behind that, and I'll just bring that up because I have it in front of me. My understanding is that there is some elements of complexity as they're working through the matters on that one, and that they intend to come back to the council meeting on the 25th of June and then back again within the time frame originally planned in August.
Thank you.
Councillor Barrett, can I just pause you if you had any further questions? Just to, sorry members, and the engagement otherwise, it just was to inform you, Val and Ross, just as you're leaving, if you could tell John also and others that the hearing for the policy will be in August, just for the process to take place, I understand. That's correct, right? Yeah. No worries. Just to update you on the process. Councillor Barrett, back to you. You okay with that response? Any other further questions, members? There being none, I'd like to move that Strategy and Finance Committee receive its work schedule dated May 25, seconded by Councillor Naylor, and invite a vote. It's passed unanimously, 12 votes for. That moves into item 16, which is the exclusion of the public, and that is the proposed lease and easement to Airways Corporation Turitea Reserve, and for the reasons for it being moved into part 2 is negotiations. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Naylor. Any comments before we vote? Okay, please. I just need to also note the persons listed below be permitted to remain after the public have been excluded for the reasons stated. Yvonne Evans, Senior Property Consultant and Property Energy Advisor, the Property Group, because of your knowledge and ability to assist the meeting and speaking to the report and answering questions. So that's incorporated with the that recommendation. I'll invite a vote. That's passed unanimously, 10 votes for. Just a couple of minutes while we change the